The ECHL Western Conference Finals are a good ways in at this point, so I'm going to do things a little bit differently here and give you kind of a double feature. The Colorado Eagles win Game 1 over the Fort Wayne Komets 3-2 in overtime, but they also lose Game 2 by the same score in regulation to put the series at 1-1. The Eagles should honestly feel pretty lucky to have split these two games at home. They really did not look great as a team, and if not for a superhuman effort from Michael Jolie, they'd probably be staring down the barrel of being down 0-2. The first period of this series started out very slowly. You could tell both teams were trying to feel each other out, and just not a whole lot happened through the first 10 minutes of this game. The Eagles would get the first power play of the series, wouldn't do anything with it. They would play a little bit of 4-on-4 that was just as reserved as they were 5-on-5. Then the Eagles would take their first penalty of the series, and Fort Wayne would, of course, make them pay. The Eagles just get stretched out a little bit on the PK here. This puck goes back up to the point to Culkin. Culkin's going to have enough space to pick his spot and fire a shot through. As the Eagles forwards are trying to get out to cover the points, the defensemen are sagging back a little bit too far. You can see Dan Maggio uncontested in the slot here. No body on him. He's able to get the tip, and it goes past Kanata. Not the way you want to start, especially after failing to score on your first power play opportunity, but thankfully Fort Wayne would gift us another power play just a minute later, and this time the Eagles would capitalize. First off, it's a great stretch pass by Marto to put it in a spot where only Jolie can collect it. He does so and gains the zone quickly, and then it's all Jolie right here. First, he's going to just dangle the jock off of the defenseman, and then cutting in on the goalie, he's going to make another quick move to slip it by him. Here's another look at the slick move on the defenseman, and then you're going to see Jolie right here just quickly drag it back to the forehand side to get the goalie to commit, and then go back to the backhand and beat him just around the pad. So when Jolie manages to pull off a play like that the first period, you know he might be pulling something off in this game. Either way, at the end of the first, you have to be pretty happy with this one. It's a tie game. Both teams felt each other out. It was fairly even, and you both got a power play goal. So you're sitting ready to go for period 2. And the thing is, on the whole, period 2 was great. The Eagles controlled play for the most part, outshot Fort Wayne 13-6, but the only team with a goal in the second period was Fort Wayne. And this is where you start to see the special teams factor into this one. The Eagles had 2 power play opportunities in the period. They failed to score on both. They gave a power play to Fort Wayne early in the second, and they capitalize. Initially on this PK, the Eagles look very good, and here they do a good job of standing them up at the blue line, but after standing the man up, Bowman can't get this puck out of the zone. It trickles across the blue line and right back to Fort Wayne. Then just a small little pass across here. It leads to a ton of space, cutting right through the middle of the ice, completely uncontested basically, as both forwards get caught in behind him. He cuts across to the far side here and just throws a backhand on net. Kanata probably should have sealed this one off, but it gets by him. So obviously, you don't want to let a guy walk right through the middle of your zone on the power play, but, you know, when you're down a man, things like that happen, and sometimes you need your goalie to bail you out. Kanata just kind of didn't on that one. Now, outside of that goal, Kanata played great in this game, and we probably don't win with a weaker goalie in a net. So he really did play fine. Just this play he ended up whiffing on. So you put yourself in a hole, and then as I mentioned already, the rest of the second was frustrating to watch, where the Eagles just couldn't seem to finish their chances. Then in the last 5 minutes of the period, the Eagles started getting themselves into some more penalty trouble. Thankfully, they managed to kill the couple of penalties they took off, but they weren't doing themselves any favors and trying to get back into the game. So you head into the third down by 1, and you knew the Eagles were going to come hard. They played a good second period. They just couldn't find a goal. Early on, Fort Wayne gets caught off guard a little bit. They take 2 penalties early in the period, but once again, the Eagles special teams let them down. By the end of the night, the Eagles would be just 1 for 7 on the power play. After failing to score on those power plays, Nick Meloche takes a penalty 9 minutes into the period, and you're starting to wonder if the Eagles are going to be able to get it done in this one. Luckily for them, Michael Jolie's magic applies short-handed as well, and just a bit past the halfway mark of the period, he ties this one up. A puck gets shot out to the neutral zone, and Culkin's actually going to misplay this puck as he's coming around through the neutral zone. Jolie not taking a shift off, keeping the pressure on, is going to be able to capitalize. He picks up the puck, gets by Culkin, and even while getting hacked on the way down, somehow manages to fool Hauser 5-hole. It might be better to be lucky than good, but Michael Jolie is both when he looks like this. So now, with a power play goal and a shorthanded goal, the game is tied, and the Eagles can't make it easy on themselves. They have to take one more penalty a bit later in the third, but they managed to kill that one too, and we kind of just grind this one out into the overtime, with neither team willing to make the mistake and give up the goal to give up game one. So we head into overtime, and some weird things happen here in this overtime. First, about a minute and 45 seconds in, Ryan Harrison ends up running into Hauser and gets the goalie interference call. I definitely think Harrison could have gotten out of the way of Hauser if he tried, but he didn't. A little bit of an accidental on purpose running into him there. He does get the penalty for it. Hauser would stay in the game despite taking a good amount of time to collect himself. And then 5 seconds later, Fort Wayne gives the Eagles a gift by taking a penalty of their own, so the Eagles don't have to kill the full 2 minutes. So it's 2-2. No goals have been scored 5-on-5. Why change the recipe now? Let's get one 4-on-4 as well. And who else but Michael Jolie to complete the hat trick? So first you got to give credit to the supporting cast here. Beaudin with a great end-to-end rush. He's going to take this one all the way up the ice from goal line to goal line. And here, right as he's cutting in, and it looks like he's going to go behind the net, he throws the puck back through the defenseman's legs on the backhand, right to Jolie's stick. It looks like Hauser doesn't even realize that this puck has gotten through, and Jolie somehow finds the way through the 5-hole once again. But what do you even say to a performance like that? Hat trick, overtime, game-winning goal. You literally just carried your team alone offensively, essentially, to a Game 1 win in the Western Conference Finals. That's just absolute beast. Jolie technically is currently on a contract with the San Antonio Rampage in the AHL, but if there's any way you can get this guy to sign and come over to the Eagles for next year in the AHL, get it done. So the Eagles made it harder than they probably had to on themselves, but they still get the Game 1 win and take the 1-0 series lead. Now, Game 2 was a whole different animal. I'm not going to talk about the game too much because, frankly, the Eagles just got dominated and looked terrible for most of it. But first, there were a couple of things that happened before the game that matter. First off, Beaudin was seen talking to the team doctor after Game 1, and sure enough, he was out for Game 2. It's a big hit for the Eagles, the leading playoff scorer out. Obviously, that's going to affect them negatively. Then the more interesting thing that happened before the game. In warm-ups before the game, both teams were clearly jawing at each other as they warmed up, and eventually, all of both teams line up and stare each other down at the red line. Someone jumps over the red line eventually at some point to throw kind of a shot, and then it kind of breaks open. Verpass ends up getting into a fight in warm-ups. He ends up getting tossed out along with a Fort Wayne player. You also had Joey Rattel and Dan Maggio get into a bit of a fight of their own. They were initially allowed to play in Game 2, but after the game they would both be suspended for Game 3 as well. So, at very least, these teams don't like each other, and Fort Wayne seems perfectly fine with playing a Goonie style against the Eagles. Onto the actual game itself, it started out alright for the Eagles. They looked decent for the first couple minutes and even got the first power play of the game, but then they didn't manage to score on that one, and from there on out it just got ugly. Fort Wayne kept drawing penalties out of the Eagles all night long, and the Eagles just couldn't help themselves. It was a total parade to the penalty box. This killed all the momentum for the Eagles through the first 40 minutes of the game, essentially, and it would cost them repeatedly as well. Fort Wayne's first goal of the night would come on the Eagles' first penalty of the night. Some quick passing by Fort Wayne gives them plenty of space at the far point, even plenty of space to walk into here as the Eagles are really just chasing the play. As they chase out, a nice shot pass gets taken and a nice tip on net. Now, a good job by Kanata to make the initial save, but the Eagles, who are scrambling to come out to the point, get caught completely in no man's land with 3 players. You can see them back here, while Fort Wayne has 2 players directly in front. Yeah, that's not a very good look. Plenty of time to set up and get this one past Kanata on the rebound. Yeah, the Eagles pretty much just didn't show up to play in the first 2 periods of this game at all. They got 6 shots in the first and just 5 shots in the second, so if they weren't in the box, they still really weren't doing much at all. As the first was winding down, it seemed like the Eagles were going to maybe get out of it down 1-0, but their penalty parade once again would come back to bite them, and you knew it was going to be tough from there. Right off of a face-off here, a clean win for Fort Wayne. It comes back to the point. The initial shot, actually a good job by the Eagles to block it. Unfortunately, it bounces right back to Sol, who takes takes a second crack on it. This one gets through. Again, stopped initially, but the Eagles are just way too soft in front of their own net. Milosh needs to absolutely lay out Thompson here. He can't let him get this shot off and not pay for it, but he does, and it goes in. So yeah, the Eagles pretty much dug their own grave in the first period of this game. The second period was just painfully slow. Fort Wayne was content to sit on their 2-goal lead, and the Eagles just couldn't get through the neutral zone to save their lives. I think at one point we were close to 10 minutes into the second period and the shots were 2-1. So not exactly exciting hockey. Somehow, despite it feeling like the Eagles weren't generating anything at all, with a little more than 5 minutes to go in the period, they would manage to get one on the board, and it seemed like they could still make a game of it. So this goal gets created by a very unusual source on the forecheck in defenseman Matt Register. He comes in hard and he hounds the puck. Eventually, with a nice hit, creates a turnover, finds it. Then he finds a streaking in Saint Amant, who, instead of just ripping off the shot, very smartly holds onto it and finds the third man in Rattel on the opposite side, who just has to slap it into the open net. It was a great play and a flash of what we've come to expect from the Eagles. The problem is it was just one small little flash in a game that was honestly pretty dark. So now it looks like you've made a game of it and you're going to head into the third period down by just one. And then nope, once again, less than a minute to go and the Eagles shoot themselves in the foot. This whole play is just a mess for the Eagles. They've already turned the puck over once in their own zone and recover it. They turn it over again almost immediately. Then it gets passed around the zone a few times. There's a couple of puck races that the Eagles do not win. So now they're tired in their own zone and they can't even manage to defend their own slot as it comes right through Register and gets past Kanata. Ugly, 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 ugly. Take that one nice play on the goal from these two periods, but just erase the rest of it from your memory. The Eagles would come out in the third and push a little bit harder. They would at least try to make it a game of it and would succeed in making it a one-goal game about halfway through. A nice feed by Olsen here hits a moving Harrison, who then streaks in and drives the net hard. He manages to get a good shot off and create a rebound that Milosh is able to sneak in and clean up for him. Again, a flash of hope from the Eagles there. A good team goal and a bit of a greasy one, the type you need to create a comeback in a situation like this. Unfortunately, try as the Eagles might, they would end up falling short on that comeback. You just can't show up for one of the 3 periods in a Western Conference final game and expect to win. So ultimately, you won a game basically solely off the skill of Michael Joly, and you lost a game entirely as a team. There were some underlying positive notes to take out of that game, but on the whole, you need to be significantly better to take games when you go on the road to Fort Wayne. That is the end of this 2-game double feature video review. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I should be posting the next one of Game 3 and 4 later today or sometime in the next 24 hours, so you can look forward to that as well. I'm Rudo3, and I already have to shave again.